Hey, hi, how you doing? Let's just get straight down to brass tacks, because I have no time to waste. Polyphia is a band that is actually much more controversial and polarizing than I thought before I, started this YouTube channel and really started A, hearing and B, caring about other people's opinions on music. And I'll start off this video by saying that I love Polyphia, so whatever comes out of my mouth throughout the course of this video that may piss off some fanboys who can't take criticism for a band they are completely unrelated to, keep in mind that it is coming from someone who loves pretty much all of their music, but I'm just not afraid to voice my criticism even for something that I enjoy. So let's begin with some history on the band. I will keep this very brief because I'm not Wikipedia. Polyphia, in comparison to bands I've made videos about previously, is a relatively new band. They were formed in 2010, and they combine elements of metal, progressive rock, hip-hop, and electronic music in the form of virtuosic guitar f***ery that few players can mimic. Now that sentence alone contained like 6 reasons why all these boomers, for lack of a better term, have such a disdain for Polyphia. First of all, Polyphia was formed in 2010, so they can't be good because no music project started after 1985 is good. Also, their music contains elements of electronic music and hip-hop, which isn't real music, and they are so virtuosic that no Gibson Les Paul boomer could ever possibly mimic what they do on guitar. They're also clearly trying to penetrate the mainstream more and more with their newer releases, and people really dislike that as well. So let's take a second to focus on what people say about their music. I've heard a lot of people say that Polyphia's music comes off as pretentious or immature, and that's just such a funny statement to me, because try to put yourself in the shoes of one of the best, most virtuosic guitar players of our time right now. You're a member of one of about 2 bands in the world doing anything innovative with the guitar right now. You've got an entire generation of young guitarists copying you and your style, and then imagine some guy on Reddit tells you that you've got a lot of learning and maturing to do musically. People like to say that Polyphia's music has no groove or melody to it, that it's nothing you could dance to, but I hate the sentiment that music is only music if you can dance to it. What kind of bullshit opinion is that? And it doesn't even hold true beyond their first EP or their first album. Polyphia's music is very groovy, maybe not all of it, but it's music that won't bore you. It kind of keeps you on your toes, keeps you on the edge of your seat a little bit, Another argument against their music that people like to make a lot is metal isn't supposed to sound like that. See, that is probably why they're not a metal band. They do have an affinity for extended range guitars, but believe it or not, you can use those outside of the context of death metal. Like, it's not immediately metal just because they're using blinged out Frederick Thorndahl signature guitars. But also, incorporating elements of other genres into your music is the only way to be a progressive band these days. The definition of what prog is constantly changing. Like 35-40 years ago, prog used to be messing with time signatures and tempo changes, but that's so done to death now that the only way to be progressive these days is to wander outside of the boundaries of a single genre. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you have to like their music or whatever. Saying it's objectively great and you have to love it is just as stupid as saying it's objectively terrible and you should hate it because it sucks. But love it or hate it, this music is helping to inspire a whole new generation of guitar players the same way that Hendrix, Metallica, and John Mayer did at one point. This arrogant way of criticizing music and guitar players that are bringing guitar back into the mainstream and, keeping the instrument alive at this point is not it. And unlike most guitar music, Polyphia's music appeals to an audience beyond just guitar nerds. Guitar nerds do love them, but so do people who have never touched a guitar in their lives. Their music just has a vibe to it that can make you forget they're playing guitar sometimes and just enjoy the music. So, as is tradition in these videos, I know you were waiting for it. Here comes the album rundown. Don't you worry, this is a short one. They don't have a lot of albums. Muse. Their first full-length album, and this was definitely the era of heavily metal-oriented Polyphia with just a few outside influences. I wanted to leave EPs out of this for the most part, but their actual debut, the Inspire EP, shows this even more with tracks like Ignite that are essentially just instrumental metal songs. And yes, Polyphia's older music is very, very heavy on the "hey look guys, we can shred," but to be fair, they can. Definitely cool, but pales in comparison to what's to come. Renaissance. Still definitely a few classic elements of metal here, but here they started to sort of dive more into single coily strat clean tones as well, so they're already starting to shape what's going to become their signature sound that every teenage guitarist is going to want to imitate. Good album, but the next album's better. The Most Hated. Alright, I can't fully leave out EPs because this one contains one of their most iconic songs, and yes, ironically their song The Worst is one of their best ones. Good EP, moving straight back onto albums though. New Levels, New Devils. Besides its completely dumbass name, this is not just a great album, but also the one that I think did the most for them publicity-wise. I feel like that's obvious given that their song Goat is on it, which is not only their most popular song by a landslide, but also the one that just kind of launched them into really viral mainstream internet success. Like, they had everybody trying to cover their songs for the first time. I've never seen like the majority of the guitar community all come together to get such a giant hard-on for one thing. I can't stand that track anymore, but I used to love it before it went viral and everyone tried covering it. You couldn't open any social media anymore without encountering it at every corner. Nothing kills the enjoyability of a song like it going viral and you just hearing it like everywhere all day long. But the album as a whole is masterpiece. Remember that you will die. This album is very new. It came out like, I don't know, 3 months ago as of me recording this right now, and I actually just very recently got to listen to it in its entirety for the first time, and I am in awe and I am in love. Nu metal in the 90s and 2000s taught us that something about combining hip-hop with metal just creates an undeniably fun vibe, and tracks like Chimera are a perfect example of that. That track is almost like reverse nu metal, if you will, because original nu metal often had elements of hip-hop taking the lead and things like vocals. Metal instruments and stuff were just kind of the rhythm section, but they're making distorted 8-string guitars the lead over hip-hop beats. And they make it a little fancy, add a bit of, you know, class and pizzazz to it with some classical guitar, and then they even released a song featuring Steve Vai to please all the old head guitar nerds who were maybe like disappointed by the fact that they're trying to penetrate the mainstream so much. It's genius. That is what prog means now. This is what makes music truly progressive these days, is just transcending genres. Now, the style and attitude of Polyphia's members, specifically Tim Henson and Scotty LePage, because now that I think about it, I've never actually heard anyone talk about the drummer or the bass player, is not for everyone, and I get it. If you've ever watched a Polyphia music video or a guitar playthrough, then you can immediately tell what kind of guys they are. I can vividly picture Tim Henson saying some shit like, "I'm not gay, I'm a homosexual," or whatever, while, you know, caressing Scotty LePage's knees. That's the type of vibe they give off, and I can certainly see why that wouldn't be for everyone. Like, I suppose I can see some degree of humor in them kind of erotically stroking each other's legs while playing guitar and like that, but if you're the type of person who finds that genuinely funny, then I just don't feel like we'd be compatible. This is not to mention Tim's, like, how do I put this, futuristic femboy aesthetic, if you will. I can't get behind that personally. Not that there's anything wrong with it or anything, you know, I'm just, it's not my taste. I do like the thing they did with like the bedazzled guitars in the Chimera playthrough and in, you know, more recent music videos as well. It's just Tim Henson's aesthetic and style that a lot of people can't get behind. Now again, that doesn't mean that I think it's bad or anything, and yes, these boomers who probably worship old glam metal bands and just dunking so hard on Polyphia and Tim in general for having a certain aesthetic and dressing up a certain way for music videos is really, really ironic. But again, this video is about why people who hate them. It's not about me, because I like Polyphia. Another thing is that despite his high school freshman boy sense of humor, Tim just seems to take himself so incredibly seriously that it's impossible to sit through one of his studio YouTube videos without just laughing. So while Scotty seems like the most likable person ever, Tim just kind of always comes across like he's constantly thinking about what a prodigy he is. Which, I mean, in his defense, he is, but it just makes you so much more likable to not act like it. I mean, look at Paul Gilbert. People calling their music immature is super arrogant, and I think those people need to come back down to earth for a second. But I do maybe get where you'd be coming from in saying that Tim has sort of an immature personality. Yes, I know this video might as well be called Guy Talks About Tim Henson for 15 minutes, but Tim is just kind of the equivalent of a frontman for Polyphia, you know? He's the Polyphia guy. Like, if Polyphia were named the Tim Henson Project, no one would bat an eye. So, in conclusion, the future is now, Grandpa. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Big special thanks to all of my lovely Patreon members for supporting the channel. Here are all of their beautiful names. You too can become a Patreon member and get all of these lovely, delicious benefits for only $1.90 per month. If you enjoyed this video, you can watch my most recent one somewhere up here. You can subscribe to my channel somewhere down there if you feel like it. I might put the latest band analysis video somewhere up here. That was 6 feet under, I believe. All my social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook are linked in the description. There's merch down there too. I don't know. Like, subscribe, hit the bell. I'll see you.